The world is a big, complicated place. Lots of countries, different currencies, everyone trying to make a buck. For years, it's been the big dogs like the US dollar calling the shots. But things are changing. There's a new crew in town and they're shaking things up. They call themselves BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries are like the starting five of emerging economies. They're big, they're powerful, and they're ready to play ball on their own terms. Now, when you're talking about economies this size, you're talking about a lot of money changing hands. And when you're talking about a lot of money, you're talking about currency, the kind of currency that can make or break a deal. So, it's no surprise that the BRICS nations have decided to create their own. This new BRICS currency, it's a big deal. Imagine a world where the dollar isn't the only game in town. That's what BRICS is aiming for. They want to create a currency that can compete on the global stage. They want to make it easier for them to trade with each other and with other countries. And they want to give developing nations an alternative to the dollar. Now, this isn't going to happen overnight. Creating a new global currency is no small feat. But the fact that BRICS is even attempting it shows just how serious they are about changing the global economic order. And for the Caribbean, a region whose economies are closely tied to global trade, the emergence of the BRICS currency could be a game changer. Think of the global economy like a giant fruit tree. The US dollar, it's been the biggest, juiciest fruit up there for years. Everybody wants a piece. But now, BRICS is like, hold up, we're growing some pretty sweet mangoes and jackfruit over here too. Introducing a new currency is like shaking that tree. Suddenly, there are more options on the ground. Countries that have been relying on the dollar might start looking at the BRICS currency and thinking, hey, that looks good too. This is what you call a shift in power. The dollar has been the big dog for so long, but the BRICS currency could change that. It could create more balance in the global economy. And when things are more balanced, it's usually a good thing for everyone, especially for countries that haven't always had a fair shake. Let's get down to business, literally. When countries trade with each other, they usually do it using the US dollar. It's like the universal language of business. But with the BRICS currency in the mix, there's a new language being spoken. Imagine you're a Caribbean country that sells a lot of sugar. Right now, you're probably selling that sugar in US dollars. But what if you could sell it in BRICS currency instead? Or what if you could buy oil from Russia using BRICS currency instead of having to go through the US dollar? This is what makes the BRICS currency so interesting. It gives countries more options. It allows them to bypass the US dollar if they want to. And in a world where geopolitics and economics are constantly intertwined, having more options is never a bad thing. Section 3, Caribbean Crossroads, a region watching closely. Now, the Caribbean, they know a thing or two about being at a crossroads. It's a region that's historically been caught in the middle of bigger powers. But it's also a region that's known for its resilience and its ability to adapt. So, when it comes to the BRICS currency, the Caribbean is watching very closely. They're seeing how it plays out. They're weighing the potential benefits and risks. Because for a region that relies heavily on trade, any major shift in the global economy is going to have an impact. The Caribbean has strong ties to both the US and China, two major players in this new economic landscape. They also have growing relationships with other BRICS nations like Brazil and India, so they're in a unique position to potentially benefit from this new currency. Section 4. The domino effect, from Beijing to Bridgetown. Here's the thing about the global economy. Everything is connected. When China sneezes, the Caribbean catches a cold. So when China, as part of BRICS, starts making moves with its currency, the Caribbean pays attention. Let's say, for example, that China starts buying more goods from the Caribbean using BRICS currency. That's good news for Caribbean economies. It means more business, more jobs, more growth. But it also means that the Caribbean will be more closely tied to the BRICS currency. This is what some people call the domino effect. One change in one part of the world can have ripple effects all over the globe. And the BRICS currency, it's got the potential to set off a whole chain reaction in the way countries do business, from Beijing all the way to Bridgetown. Section 1, Island Time, Global Trade, a Caribbean Story. The Caribbean. Picture it, turquoise waters, white sand beaches, and a whole lot of sunshine. But beneath the surface of paradise, there's a serious story of trade. These islands aren't just about vacation vibes, they're about business. For centuries, the Caribbean has been a hub for global trade. Sugar, spices, rum, these islands were built on exports. They've always had to be savvy, navigating the currents of global commerce. Now, the Caribbean isn't a monolith. Each nation has its own unique history and economic ties. Some have strong connections to former colonial powers, others have forged their own paths, but they all share a reliance on international trade. Enter the BRICS nations. These emerging giants have been making waves in the Caribbean for some time now. China, in particular, has become a major player, investing in infrastructure and development projects. The BRICS currency? It's got everyone's attention. Caribbean nations are watching closely, analyzing the potential impact on their economies. Could this be a chance to diversify their trading partners? Could it lead to better deals and new opportunities? The Caribbean has always been adaptable. They've had to be, facing economic shocks and natural disasters. The question is, how will they leverage this new BRICS development? Now, the Caribbean might seem like small fry compared to the massive economies of the BRICS nations, but don't let that fool you. These islands have something valuable to offer access. The Caribbean is strategically located, sitting at the crossroads of major shipping lanes. They're a gateway to the Americas with established trade routes to North America and Europe. For BRICS countries looking to expand their global reach, the Caribbean could be a valuable partner. And it's not just about location. The Caribbean boasts a young, educated workforce. Many islands have well-developed financial sectors and are actively seeking foreign investment. They offer something BRICS nations need, a foothold in a region with huge potential. Of course, it's not all sunshine and steel drums. The Caribbean faces a delicate balancing act. They have long-standing relationships with countries like the United States and those in Europe. Shifting towards the BRICS currency could disrupt these relationships. It could also make them vulnerable to shifts in BRICS policies or economic downturns. It's a high-stakes game of chess, and the Caribbean needs to play its cards carefully. The key? Strategic partnerships. The Caribbean must leverage its strengths while diversifying its economic ties. It's about finding that sweet spot, maximizing opportunities while safeguarding their interests. Talk is cheap, right? The Caribbean isn't jumping on the BRICS bandwagon just because it's trendy. They want to see the receipts, the actual deals happening on the ground. And guess what? They're starting to roll in. Take Barbados, for example. They've inked a deal with China to use the BRICS currency for some of their trade. That means Barbadian businesses can buy Chinese goods directly without having to go through the US dollar. It's like cutting out the middleman and saving a few bucks in the process. And it's not just Barbados. Other Caribbean nations are dipping their toes in the BRICS currency pool too. Jamaica is exploring using it for some of its bauxite exports to China. Trinidad and Tobago is looking at ways to use it for energy deals with India. These are early days, but the momentum is building. Here's the thing about the BRICS currency. It's not just about money. It's about building closer ties between nations. And one way to do that is through infrastructure projects. Think roads, bridges, ports, the kind of stuff that makes trade flow smoothly. China, as part of its Belt and Road Initiative, has been investing heavily in Caribbean infrastructure. They're building a new port in Jamaica, upgrading airports in Barbados, and financing a highway in Trinidad. And guess what currency they're increasingly using for these projects? You got it, the BRICS currency. This is a win-win situation. The Caribbean gets much-needed infrastructure upgrades, creating jobs and boosting their economies. And BRICS nations get to expand their influence and promote their currency. It's like they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. Let's talk tourism. It's the lifeblood of many Caribbean economies. Every year, millions of tourists flock to these islands, their pockets full of US dollars, ready to soak up the sun and spend some cash. But what if those tourists started carrying BRICS currency instead? That's the question some Caribbean nations are asking themselves. As BRICS economies grow, so does their middle class, and with it, their appetite for travel. Imagine a world where Russian tourists in Cuba pay for their mojitos in BRICS currency, or Indian families vacationing in St. Lucia use it to buy souvenirs. This could be a game changer for the Caribbean tourism industry. It would mean less reliance on the US dollar and more opportunities to attract visitors from emerging markets. Of course, there are hurdles to overcome. Tourists need to be able to easily use the BRICS currency, and businesses need to be equipped to accept it. But the potential is there, waiting to be unlocked. Sunshine and shadows. The potential of BRICS for the Caribbean. The Caribbean, like a sunny beach with a shady palm tree, has to be smart about the BRICS currency. Sure, it sounds great at first. Less reliance on the US dollar? Yes, please. More trade opportunities? Sign us up. But hold your horses, man. There's two sides to every coin. On the bright side, this could be huge for Caribbean economies. Imagine selling your goods to massive markets like China and India without the hassle of exchanging currencies. Think about all those tourists from BRICS nations, their pockets full of that new money, ready to spend it on Caribbean hospitality. But here come the shadows. What if the BRICS currency doesn't take off as expected? What if it becomes unstable? Caribbean economies are fragile. They can't afford to gamble on a risky bet. Plus, cozying up to BRICS might ruffle some feathers with old pals like the US. It's a delicate dance, my friends. Section 2, Not So Fast. Challenges on the road to BRICS integration. Let's get real for a second. Switching to a new currency isn't like changing your phone wallpaper. It's a big deal. Caribbean nations have systems in place, contracts signed, all based on the US dollar. Changing that takes time, money, and a whole lot of paperwork. And here's the kicker. The BRICS currency isn't even a real thing yet, it's still in the works. So the Caribbean is basically being asked to bet on a horse that hasn't even left the stable. Plus, let's not forget about the big elephant in the room. China. China's economic dominance within BRICS is no secret. Caribbean nations have to be careful not to become too dependent on one giant power. Remember what happened with the colonial powers back in the day? Yeah, let's not repeat that. Section 3. Playing it smart, Caribbean strategies for a BRICS-influenced world. So what's a savvy Caribbean nation to do? Simple. Play it smart. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify, diversify, diversify. Keep those ties with the US and Europe strong, but explore opportunities with BRICS nations too. It's like having a well-balanced breakfast. Keeps you going all day long. Invest in education and technology. Train your workforce for the jobs of the future, whether they're in tourism, tech, or trade. Make it easy for BRICS businesses to invest in your country, but don't give away the farm. Be strategic, be bold, be Caribbean. The world is changing, and the Caribbean has a front-row seat to this economic revolution. It's a time of great opportunity, but also of great uncertainty. By being smart, adaptable, and maybe even a little bit cheeky, Caribbean nations can ride this wave of change and come out on top. Section 1. BRICS. Riding the wave or wiping out. So we've talked about the BRICS currency, this new kid on the block trying to shake up the global economy. The Caribbean, those beautiful islands with a knack for navigating choppy waters, they're watching closely. Will this be the wave they ride to economic prosperity, or will it come crashing down, leaving them high and dry? The truth is, nobody knows for sure. It's like trying to predict the weather in hurricane season. Anything could happen. If the BRICS currency takes off, it could be a game changer for the Caribbean. Imagine more trade, more investment, and a whole lot of tourists flashing that new currency. But, and this is a big but, there are also risks. What if the BRICS currency flops? What if it becomes unstable, leaving Caribbean economies vulnerable? And let's not forget about the geopolitical implications. Aligning too closely with one bloc could have consequences down the line. Section 2. The Caribbean's Balancing Act, a future as bright as the sun? The Caribbean is known for its vibrant culture, its resilience, and its ability to adapt. They've weathered storms before, both literal and economic. And that's exactly what they need to do now, weather this storm of uncertainty. The key is balance. Don't put all your eggs in the BRICS basket just yet. Keep those ties strong with traditional partners like the US and Europe, while exploring opportunities with BRICS nations. It's all about diversification, about having options. The Caribbean has a lot to offer the world. from its strategic location to its skilled workforce and abundance of natural resources. By playing their cards right, by being smart, strategic, and a little bit bold, Caribbean nations can navigate this new economic landscape and emerge stronger than ever. The future is theirs to shape, and it's looking brighter than a Caribbean sunset.